Myles Garrett is available. And the Bears know it. This is not a rumor. The Athletic is reporting it. The Browns restructured his contract in March to make a post-June 1st trade possible, and Garrett still has not met personally with Cleveland's new offensive coordinator. That is not a small detail. That is an exit sign. 23 sacks in 2025 in year 9, two-time Defensive Player of the Year. Someone is taking him before week 1, and in a minute, I am going to tell you exactly why Poles needs to make that call today, but also why this could be the worst mistake this franchise makes if they do not think it through. And while that is happening, Ben Johnson made a draft move with Sam Roush in the 3rd round that almost nobody is reading correctly. Once you understand what Johnson is building with Cole Kmet and Roush on the field at the same time, you are going to see the Bears' ground game in a completely different way. And after all of that, there is a PFF number on Gervon Dexter that no analyst in Chicago wants to read out loud. This is his contract year. This is his year of truth, and the data says there is a hole in his game that teams with running backs like Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley are going to find. Caleb Williams is ready. The offense is built. The question that defines this season starts right here. Bear down. Okay, let's keep it a buck for a second. The Bears finished the 2025 season with 35 sacks. 35 total all year. That's a number that stings just seeing it written out. And what makes it sting even more is that Montez Sweat, who was supposed to be the guy on that defensive front, didn't deliver the consistent impact everybody expected. Austin Booker has upside, sure, but he's still very much a work in progress. That is the real context here. Now, Bleacher Report is saying the Bears are still being linked to Max Crosby out of Las Vegas. Gary Davenport puts it plainly, Vegas needs young assets. Crosby is saying all the right things publicly, but his relationship with an organization that tried to trade him to Baltimore and literally shut him down against his will, that is not exactly a honeymoon situation. Crosby is 30 years old, prime window, one of the best pass rushers in the league when he's healthy and locked in. The issue is that the Raiders want real compensation, and Poles would have to give up draft capital that this franchise still needs. But hold on, because at the same time, The Athletic is reporting that Myles Garrett could be available under the right circumstances. Bro, this man broke the single-season sack record with 23 in 2025. 23 sacks in year 9. Who does that? The Browns restructured his contract in March to make a post-June 1st trade more possible than it was before. And what stands out is that Garrett still hasn't met personally with new offensive coordinator Todd Monken. That is not a small detail. Now look, I could be wrong about this, but if you ask me which one makes more sense for the Bears right now, I say Garrett. And here's why. Crosby is 30 and comes out of a dysfunctional situation in Las Vegas. Garrett is 32, but he's a different product entirely. Two-time Defensive Player of the Year, the single-season sack record in NFL history. Putting Garrett in the same conversation as Lawrence Taylor and Reggie White isn't hype, it's just accurate. That type of player next to Montez Sweat, with Tremaine Edmonds in the middle and a secondary that has improved, that's not a team fighting for a wild card. That is a team competing for a Super Bowl right here on the lakefront. Poles has been disciplined all year, maybe too disciplined for a lot of fans. And honestly, for my taste too. He didn't touch the edge rusher position in free agency beyond what was already on the roster. He drafted Jordan Vandenberg in the 6th round as a development swing. That tells you one of 3 things. Either Poles genuinely believes Booker and Sweat can carry that load, or he's waiting for Crosby's price to drop, or he's eyeing a mid-season window. All 3 scenarios are live right now. But if I am Ryan Poles and I have a shot at adding Myles Garrett before week 1, I'm making that call. Today, before the Eagles or the Cowboys pick up the phone first, because they are absolutely in this conversation too. Philly just added Jonathan Greenard and would be building an absolutely terrifying duo if they land Garrett on top of that. Dallas has the exact same sack problem we do. This isn't just an opportunity for the Bears. This is a quiet auction, and whoever blinks first loses. Caleb Williams is ready. Ben Johnson is ready. The offense is built to score. The question that defines this season in the Windy City is whether the defense can dominate when it matters most. And the answer to that question runs directly through whoever is making life miserable for quarterbacks from the edge. There are draft picks that look strange the moment you make them, and then 3 weeks later you realize the team saw something the rest of the world completely missed. The Sam Roush pick in the 3rd round is starting to enter that category. When the Bears used that pick on Roush, the reaction was basically a tight end? In round 3? With all the holes we have on defense, man, I questioned it myself. But here's what Troy Clardy, the Bears play-by-play voice, said on the Making Monsters podcast from the 2 and City Gridiron Network, and this reframes everything. Roush came out of Stanford with a crystal clear identity. No block, no rock. No blocking, no football. 4 years at Stanford, 4 touchdowns. This is not a receiver dressed up as a tight end. This is a first-level blocker who can catch the ball when you ask him to. Now connect that to what Ben Johnson did with the running game in 2025. The Bears went from one of the worst rushing attacks in the league to top 3 in under 1 season. DeAndre Swift and Ian Monangai had room to run because the offensive line and the tight ends opened real lanes. Roush walks in as the next piece in that philosophy. Johnson builds his offense on versatility and confusion. When you have Cole Kmet as your primary receiving option at tight end and Roush as the physical blocker who tilts the line of scrimmage, suddenly, the opposing defensive coordinator has a real problem. He cannot predict the run based on tight end alignment because the Bears have options in both directions out of the same formation. This is not depth, this is design. Ben Johnson is telling you, I am going to run the football and I am going to run it in ways you cannot anticipate. And Sam Roush is part of that message. Look, I'm going to be straight with this one because Gervon Dexter deserves that. 6 sacks and 38 pressures from the interior in 2025 is legitimately impressive. Those numbers put him top 10 and top 20 respectively among defensive tackles in the league. That is not a coincidence. But an NFL analyst just named him the most overrated player on the Bears heading into 2026, and honestly, bam! The argument has real substance. The issue is not what Dexter does against the quarterback. The issue is what happens when the opposing offense decides to run the ball. His best PFF run defense grade was 60.3 in 2024, which is basically average at best. In 2023, it was 36.2. In 2025, it dropped to 44.0. That's a concerning trend. And when you stack that next to Grady Jarrett, also sitting at 44.5 in run defense last season, and Neville Gallimore, the off-season addition, not being any kind of wall against the run either. The Bears have a real potential hole in the middle of that defensive line that teams with a good running back are going to attack. This is the contract year for Dexter. His rookie deal is done after this season, and the reality of the interior defensive tackle market is brutal and clear. Nobody's paying big money for a player who can only do one of the 2 main things his position demands. He needs to show he can be a complete tackle, not just a specialized interior rusher. If he figures it out, the Bears have the best kind of problem, paying to keep a player who was a cornerstone of an elite defense. If he doesn't, Poles is going to have a tough call next offseason. And y'all don't understand how much we need the first outcome to happen. Look at everything that's happening around this team right now. A defensive line with real questions in the middle. A 3rd-round tight end who carries more offensive impact than anyone expected. And the very real possibility that Myles Garrett or Max Crosby ends up wearing navy and orange in 2026. This is not a team waiting its turn. This is a team that is 1 or 2 moves away from being genuinely dangerous. If you've been a Bears fan for any stretch of time, you know what it feels like to be close but missing something. Well, that something might have a name and a number this year. Fam, drop it in the comments. Do you go get Garrett? Do you go get Crosby? Or do you trust what Poles already has? Because we need that conversation right now. Hit that like if you rode with us today, subscribe if you haven't yet, and we'll see you in the next one. Bear down.